The alarm fades into silence, but I don't move. From my doorway, the glow from her room spills across the hall, catching the curve of Emily's shoulder as she sleeps. 7 years in this apartment, sharing walls, meals, silences, and I've buried it all under the weight of routine. Rent splits, grocery lists, the easy rhythm of coexistence. But her breathing pulls at me now, steady and deep, like a tide I can't ignore. Unspoken, always unspoken. I step closer, the floor cool under my feet, heart thudding against what we pretend isn't there. You know that ache, don't you? The one that starts in your chest and spreads. We met through Sarah, our mutual friend from the office, at a coffee shop on a rainy Tuesday. She waved me over to their table, where Emily sat nursing a black coffee, her fingers tracing the rim of the mug. "This is Emily," Sarah said. "She's hunting for a roommate." Emily looked up, her brown eyes steady, and smiled just enough to crinkle the corners. We talked for an hour, about the commute, the building's leaky faucets, how neither of us cooked much but hated eating alone. Her voice was low, deliberate, like she chose every word. Instant ease. No awkward pauses, just the rain tapping the window as we swapped numbers. A week later, we toured the apartment together. It was on the 3rd floor of an old brick walk-up downtown, sunlight slanting through the windows onto scuffed hardwood. "Practical," I said, checking the closets. Emily nodded, running her hand along the kitchen counter. "And the rent splits even." But it felt like more than numbers aligning. Her presence filled the space already. Her quiet laugh when the fridge hummed too loud, the way she lingered in the living room, testing the couch's give. We signed the lease that afternoon, hands brushing over the pen. Growing comfort, I told myself. Just that. Unpacking started the next weekend. Boxes everywhere, the air thick with dust and the scent of cardboard. Emily's habits emerged in the chaos. Books stacked in uneven towers by the couch, spines cracked from use, poetry volumes, worn novels about distant places. Her coffee lingered in the kitchen, dark grounds spilling from the grinder, the bitter aroma clinging to the cabinets. I hauled in my own things, clothes folded neat, a few plants for the sills, but watched her more than I unpacked. She knelt by a box, hair falling forward as she sorted mugs, her shirt pulling tight across her back. I turned away, focused on shelves. That first shared meal happened around dusk. Boxes half empty, the kitchen a mess of takeout containers. We ordered pizza, but the plates didn't match. Hers chipped blue ceramic, mine plain white from a thrift store set. We sat at the wobbly table, cheese stretching as we bit in, laughter bubbling when a slice flopped onto the napkin. "To new starts," Emily said, clinking her water glass to mine. Her knee bumped the table leg, and ours touched under the wood. Accidental, warm. We talked about jobs, the city's hum outside, how the apartment already felt less empty. Laughter eased the edges of exhaustion, but her gaze held mine a beat too long over the crusts. Night 1, the place settled into quiet. I finished stacking my books, the clock ticking past midnight. Emily's door stood ajar, light from the street lamp filtering through her window, casting her silhouette against the blinds. She stood there, arms crossed, staring out at the city lights. The curve of her neck, the way her tank top hung loose, it pulled my gaze like gravity. I paused in the hall, breath caught. She turned slightly, unaware, and the shadow shifted. I backed to my room, door clicking shut, but the image stuck, proximity already shrinking the space between us. Days blurred into routine after that, but small touches lingered longer than they should. Mornings in the kitchen, her hand brushing mine for the coffee pot, fingers grazing knuckles. Evenings, passing in the narrow hall, shoulders nearly touching. The apartment felt smaller, walls pressing in with every shared glance. I wondered if she felt it too, the subtle shift, the air thickening just a little. But we moved through it, unpacking the last boxes, hanging curtains that softened the light. Comfort building, unspoken undercurrents pulling tighter. And that's how it began, you see, in the quiet details that started to matter more than the words we didn't say. Morning started with the commute, our cars side by side in the downtown crawl. Emily drove the old sedan she'd had since college, windows cracked to let in the crisp air. I'd follow in mine, but some days she'd wave me into the passenger seat, her hand on the gear shift as she shifted lanes. The leather warmed under her palm, and once, merging onto the highway, her fingers brushed mine where I'd rested my hand on the console. Skin met skin, brief as a spark, but it lingered. I pulled back, stared at the blurring buildings, heart thudding against my ribs. She didn't say a word, just accelerated, the engine's hum filling the silence. Did she feel the jolt too? Or was it only me, reading too much into the ordinary? Kitchen mornings pulled us closer after that. I'd shuffle in, hair still tangled from sleep, and find her at the counter, pouring coffee from the pot we'd bought together. Black for her, a splash of milk for me. Steam rose in lazy curls, carrying the bitter scent that clung to her sweater. She'd slide the mug across, our fingers overlapping on the handle, her nails short and practical from typing reports all day. The warmth seeped through ceramic into my skin, but it was her closeness that heated the room. She'd lean against the sink, sipping slow, eyes on the window where fog clung to the glass. "Slept okay?" she'd ask, voice rough from waking. I'd nod, throat tight, watching the steam dissolve between us. The air felt thicker those mornings, charged with what we didn't name. You'd know that feeling, wouldn't you? When the smallest routine turns into something you wait for. Evenings brought the unwind, the couch sinking under our weight after long days. We'd collapse there, takeout containers balanced on the coffee table, the lamp casting low light over the room. Stories spilled out then. Her about the office drama, the coworker who talked too loud, me about the endless emails, the city noise that never quit. Her leg would stretch out, ankle brushing my calf as she shifted, the denim of her jeans rough against my bare skin. I didn't move away. The fabric of the couch creaked, holding us in that shared dip, her shoulder inches from mine. Laughter came easy, her head tilting back, throat exposed in the dim glow. I'd catch myself staring, trace the line of her collarbone with my eyes, then look down at my plate. The tension built quiet, like humidity before a storm, every shared breath amplifying the space between. The first near miss happened on a Thursday, shelves half empty in the kitchen reorganization. Emily reached for a jar of spices on the top rack, her shirt riding up, exposing a strip of skin at her waist. "Can't get it," she muttered, stretching on her toes. I stepped behind her, closer than necessary, my chest nearly to her back as I lifted my arm. The jar came down easy, but our bodies aligned, her warmth pressing back, my breath catching on her hair, the faint scent of her shampoo, clean and sharp. Time slowed. Her hand steadied on the counter, fingers splaying, and I felt the tremor in her frame. We froze like that, inches apart, the air electric. Then she turned her head, eyes meeting mine over her shoulder, dark and searching. My pulse hammered. I handed her the jar, stepped back, mumbled something about dinner. She nodded, cheeks flushed, and busied herself with labels. But the moment hung there, unspoken. I wondered after that if she noticed my pauses, the way my looks lingered on the curve of her hand as she stirred sugar, or how I'd hold the door a second too long. Nights, lying in bed, the apartment walls thin as paper, every sound intimate, her turning pages in a book, the creak of her floorboards, the soft sigh before sleep. It echoed through the plaster, pulling at me. Did she hear my breathing quicken? Feel the weight of my silence across the hall? The pull deepened, a current under the surface of our days. I told myself it was nothing, just proximity breeding familiarity. But you know better, don't you? How those pauses build into something inevitable? Seasons changed outside, leaves turning, then falling. But the pull deepened, with each shared chore, the rhythm of us tightening, like a knot I couldn't loosen. Washing dishes became our ritual after dinner, the sink filling with hot water that steamed up the small window over it. Emily would stand at my side, sleeves rolled to her elbows, her forearms glistening as she scrubbed a plate. I'd hand her the soap, our fingers grazing, hers slick from the suds, mine dry and hesitant. One night, a splash hit her cheek, and she laughed, low and close, wiping it with the back of her wrist. I reached over without thinking, my thumb brushing the water from her skin. It was soft there, warmer than the steam. Her eyes flicked to mine, holding just a second too long, the sponge forgotten in her grip. The water ran louder, but my pulse drowned it out. I pulled back, grabbed a towel, mumbled about drying the counters. She nodded, but her cheeks stayed pink under the kitchen light. Laundry nights pulled us into the basement, the dryer's hum vibrating through the concrete floor. We'd sort piles on the folding table, her shirts mixed with mine, colors blurring in the dim bulb's glow. The fabric came out warm, heavy with the clean scent of her detergent, but underneath it, something sharper, like her skin after a long day. I'd fold one of her button-ups, fingers tracing the collar where it had rested against her neck. She sat across from me, legs crossed, shaking out a pair of jeans. Our knees bumped under the table, denim to denim, and neither of us shifted away. "These never fit right after washing," she said, holding them up, the waistband stretched. I took them, smoothed the seams, our hands overlapping on the material. Heat from the dryer lingered, but it was her proximity that made the air thick. I handed them back, quick, blamed the stuffy room for my flush. You know how it is. Those moments where folding clothes feels like mapping someone else's body. Grocery runs turned ordinary too, the cart rattling between us down the fluorescent aisles. Emily pushed it, her hand loose on the bar, while I tossed in apples, bread, the basics. Our hips bumped, accidental-like, when we turned a corner, mine into hers, soft give through our coats. Spark jumped, quick as a static shock, and she steadied the cart, glancing sideways. "Watch it," she teased, voice light, but her eyes lingered on my mouth. I laughed it off, grabbed a box of pasta higher up the shelf, stretching so my shirt pulled taut. Did she notice? The way I held the pose a beat longer? We loaded the bags into the car after, arms brushing as we reached for the same handle, the plastic crinkling between us. Exhaustion, I told myself later, wiping sweat from my brow. Just the weight of the bags. We tried gardening once, spring hitting the fire escape with pots of herbs and dirt we'd hauled up 3 flights. Emily knelt first, soil black under her nails as she packed it around the basil roots. I joined her, knees on the metal grating, the sun warming our backs. She scooped a handful, but it crumbled, smearing mud across my cheek when she laughed and flicked it my way. "Oops," she said, close enough that her breath stirred the air. Her thumb hovered near my face, wiping at the streak, rough from the earth. I froze, the touch electric, her eyes dark against the blue sky. Dirt flecked her lip, and I wanted to brush it away. Instead, I smeared more back, playful cover for the heat rising in my chest. We pulled apart laughing, but the laughter rang hollow. Distraction, I thought, rinsing my hands later. The plants needed water, not us. I pulled back each time after that, blaming fatigue from work, the endless city grind, anything but the want building like pressure in my veins. But it cycled, chore to chore, gaze to gaze, and I'd catch myself watching her hands, strong and sure, imagining them steady on something else. Sensory things piled up, the salt of her skin when we wiped counters, the curve of her back bending to the oven. Unbearable, how it all pressed in. Scrubbed the floors one humid evening, both of us on hands and knees, the mop bucket sloshing. Emily's hair felt damp with sweat, sticking to her neck as she pushed the rag forward. I followed, close behind, the scent of her, clean soap mixed with effort, filling the space. Our arms brushed, slick skin to slick skin, and she paused, looking back. The floor gleamed wet, but the air felt heavier. I met her eyes, saw the mirror of my own hunger there, raw and unspoken. Closeness like that, it choked the breath right out. I stood first, wrung the mop, said the place looked good enough. Evenings brought some relief after, collapsing with tea, but nights amplified the silence, her door clicking shut across the hall, leaving me with echoes I couldn't shake. Porch sits started on those humid summer evenings, the apartment's back door creaking open to the narrow balcony we called a porch. Crickets hummed from the alley below, their chorus rising like a pulse against the city's distant roar. Emily would step out first, 2 glasses of cheap red wine in hand, the liquid sloshing dark against the stems. I'd follow, the screen door slapping shut behind me, settling into the wicker chairs that scraped the concrete. The air hung heavy, thick with jasmine from the neighbor's vine creeping over the railing. Her voice cut through soft, starting with the day's small frustrations, the boss's endless meetings, the coffee spill on her desk. I'd nod, sipping slow, the wine tart on my tongue, watching fireflies blink in the dusk. Stories turned personal as the night deepened, the cricket's rhythm syncing with our words. She'd lean forward, elbows on knees, recounting a college trip gone wrong, the way rain trapped her in a tent with a friend who talked through the dark. Past loves surfaced then, careful sketches without names, hers a painter who left notes in sketchbooks, mine a fleeting office crush that faded like fog. Unspoken hung between us, the what-ifs we skirted. Her glass would clink to mine mid-sentence, the sound sharp, pulling my eyes to her fingers curled around the stem. To surviving the week, she'd say, and I'd echo it, our knuckles brushing in the toast. The wine warmed my chest, loosened the knots, but her proximity tightened others. You'd feel it too, that shift when talk turns inward, the night wrapping around confessions you almost make. One evening, the lean happened without warning. We drained our glasses, the empty bottle between the chairs, crickets swelling louder as if urging us on. Emily shifted, her shoulder pressing into mine, the thin cotton of her shirt seeping warmth through my sleeve. It started casual, adjusting for the breeze, but neither pulled away. Her arm settled there, solid, the heat spreading like ink in water. I froze, breath shallow, the scent of her soap, lavender faint from the day, mixing with the night's damp earth. She didn't move, just kept talking about a family road trip, her voice dropping lower, vibrating through the contact. My skin prickled, aware of every inch where we touched, the curve of her arm against my side. Heart thudded, matching the insect's relentless chirp. I wanted to turn, rest my head there, let the warmth pull me under. But I stayed still, glass clutched tight, pretending the stars above held my attention. Stars wheeled overhead, pinpricks against the black, and her gaze met mine longer than before. We'd tilt heads back, pointing out constellations she swore she remembered from childhood. Orion's belt, the Dipper's handle. But tonight, after the lean, her eyes caught the porch light's glow, dark pools reflecting the flicker. "Look at that one," she murmured, chin lifting, but her stare drifted to my face instead. Time stretched, the crickets fading to a hum in my ears. Her lips parted slightly, as if words balanced there, unspoken like the loves we'd hinted at. I held her look, pulse racing, the air between us charged, thick as the humidity clinging to our skin. Inches separated our mouths, the pull magnetic, her breath warm on my cheek. Hunger mirrored in her eyes, raw, pulling me forward. But I blinked first, glanced up at the sky, broke the spell with a forced laugh about shooting stars. She exhaled, shoulder easing back, but the warmth lingered like a brand. Internal ache built then, heart thudding with the cricket's rhythm, words sticking in my throat like burrs. Why couldn't I say it? The want coiled tight, her nearness a torment I craved. Nights like that left me hollow, replaying the lean, the gaze, wondering if she lay awake too, the wall between us paper thin. Did the silence scream for her as it did for me? The pull sharpened, every cricket's call a reminder of what simmered unsaid. We'd retreat inside eventually, the door closing with a click that echoed too loud, but the night's pull followed to bed, her footsteps fading down the hall, leaving me with the wine's aftertaste and echoes I couldn't quiet. Mornings reset us then, the rooster's crow from the market vendor below breaking the quiet sharper now. Dawn broke with the rooster's crow, sharp and insistent from the market vendor's cart 2 blocks down. It pierced the quiet, pulling me from half sleep, the sheets tangled around my legs. But it was Emily's stirring next door that really yanked me awake. The soft creak of her bed frame, the rustle of covers as she shifted. I lay there, eyes on the ceiling cracks, listening to her movements through the thin wall. Footsteps padded across her floor, light and unhurried. Then the click of her lamp. My heart picked up, matching the bird's distant call. The apartment still dark outside the window blinds. I wanted to stay in that limbo, suspended between night and day, but the sound of her door opening dragged me up. Proximity like this, it invaded everything, even sleep. We shared the bathroom in a rush those mornings, the space too small for two, steam already fogging the mirror from her quick shower. I'd slip in after, toothbrush in hand, but she'd linger at the sink, hair damp and curling at the ends, water dripping from her chin. One morning, her towel slipped from the hook as she reached for her comb, sliding down in a heap at her feet, leaving her in just the thin robe she'd thrown on. It gaped open at the neck, exposing the line of her collarbone, skin still flushed from the heat. My eyes flicked there before I could stop them, catching the curve of her shoulder, the way droplets traced down. She bent to grab it, robe shifting, and I averted too late, heat flooding my face as our gazes met in the fogged reflection. "Sorry," she muttered, voice low, tying the belt tighter, but her cheeks colored under the damp strands. I mumbled back, focused on the sink, the paste sharp on my tongue. The air hung thick, charged with the steam and something heavier, her scent, soap and warmth, clinging to the tiles. I rinsed quick, escaped to dress, but the image burned, pulling at me all the way down the hall. Breakfast scrambled next, the kitchen filling with the sizzle of eggs in the pan. Emily padded in barefoot, toes curling against the cool tiles as she cracked shells into the bowl. I'd stir them over the flame, oil popping, while she sliced bread, her feet whispering across the floor. The counter pressed cold against my hip, but her nearness warmed the space. Bare legs brushing the cabinet as she moved, the hem of her shorts riding up just enough. She'd lean in to check the pan, arm grazing mine, breath warm on my neck. "Need salt?" she'd ask, reaching past, her hip bumping the stove handle. Electricity sparked, ignored, as I nodded, plating the food with hands unsteady. We ate standing sometimes, too rushed for chairs, her shoulder against mine at the counter, the fork clinking between bites. The eggs tasted of butter and haste, but it was the casual press of her body that lingered, skin to skin through thin fabric. I focused on the plate, the tiles chill underfoot, anything but the way her laugh vibrated close when a yolk broke. Coffee came last at the table, mugs steaming between us, the wood scarred from years of mornings like this. We'd sit knee to knee in the narrow space, her legs stretching out under the edge, brushing mine, accidental at first, bare skin to denim, then lingering. The contact sent a jolt, warm and insistent, but we'd both pretend, stirring sugar slow, eyes on the swirl. Her foot hooked the chair leg once, calf pressing firmer, and I felt the muscle tense beneath. Electricity hummed, ignored, as conversations skirted the day ahead, traffic, deadlines, the vendor's fresh produce below. My pulse raced under the calm, the brush turning deliberate in my mind, though neither acknowledged. I shifted once, but her knee followed, steady, pulling a flush I hid behind the mug's rim. I tried to joke it off that morning, voice cracking on the words. "This rooster's got better timing than my alarm," I said, aiming for light, but the tremor betrayed me, rough at the edges. Emily's eyes lifted, holding mine across the steam, a flicker there, recognition, maybe hunger. She smiled faint, knee still against mine, and the air thickened before words could form. Ever felt that? The space between you and someone, heavy with what you won't say, pulling tighter until it aches. Work pulled us apart after, cars separating in the lot. But evenings drew us back, the apartment waiting like a magnet, bonds tightening in the quiet hours. Weekends brought projects, those half-planned fixes we'd talk about during the week, but only tackle when the apartment felt too still. One Saturday, we decided on rearranging the furniture, shoving the couch against the far wall to open up the living room. Emily grabbed one end, her hands gripping the frame tight, muscles shifting under her t-shirt as she lifted. I took the other, the wood heavy between us, but her strength surprised me. Steady pull, no strain in her voice when she said, "On 3." We heaved, the legs scraping the floor in a low groan, and her arm flexed close to mine, bicep brushing my elbow with each step. Sweat beaded on her temple by the second push, the room filling with the scent of dust stirred up from the rug. I watched her jaw set, the line of her neck taut, and my grip slipped once, forcing us closer. Bodies aligned for a beat, her hip to mine, warmth cutting through the effort. She steadied us both, hand on my forearm, fingers pressing firm. "Got it," she breathed, eyes meeting mine, dark with focus. I nodded, pulse jumping, and we set it down, the space reshaped but the air between us tighter. Painting came next. The bedroom walls we'd picked a soft gray to replace the landlord's beige. We taped edges first, her kneeling to mask the baseboards, me up high on a stool for the trim. The roller came out heavy with paint, Emily dipping it slow, excess dripping onto the drop cloth. She started on the broad strokes, arms extending in smooth arcs, the roller whispering against the plaster. Flecks caught her neck when she tilted her head, white specks against her skin like stars. I set my brush down, stepped close without a word, my fingers reaching to wipe them. The paint smeared under my touch, cool and sticky, but her skin burned beneath. She paused, roller mid-stroke, turning slightly so my hand lingered at her nape, thumb tracing the edge of a drop. Time hung there, her breath shallow, the ladder creaking as I balanced. Her eyes flicked up, holding mine, a question unspoken in the quiet room. I pulled back slow, grabbed a rag, heart thudding against my ribs. "Missed a spot," I said, voice rough. She nodded, resumed painting, but her shoulders stayed tense, the flex forgotten. The near miss hit during that same afternoon, the ladder wobbling as I climbed higher for the ceiling corner. Emily held the base, her hands steady on the legs, but the whole thing shifted when a rung caught uneven. I teetered, brush dropping paint in the splatter below, and her arms shot up, catching my waist to pull me down. We landed tangled on the cloth, her hands firm around me, holding seconds too long. Fingers splayed across my sides, breath hot against my ear as we steadied. The room spun for a moment, her body under mine, solid and warm through the thin layers. I felt her heartbeat quick against my chest, fast as mine, her grip tightening before releasing. "You okay?" she asked, voice low, eyes searching my face, inches away. I nodded, couldn't speak, the press of her waist under my palms burning. We untangled slow, her hand trailing my arm as she stood, but the fear of falling felt small compared to the drop in my gut. Friendship, I thought. Don't shatter it. But the hold replayed, her strength wrapping around me like a promise. Lunch broke the haze. Sandwiches we'd thrown together, ham and cheese on the floor amid paint cans, drop cloths rumpled like a picnic. We sat cross-legged, knees touching, as we unwrapped foil, the bread soft under our fingers. Conversation started light, about the colors shift in the light, but hushed when her knee pressed firmer, staying there. The contact sparked, warm skin through denim, and words trailed off, eyes on our plates. Her foot nudged mine, accidental, then lingered, the silence thick with the unsaid. I bit into the sandwich, cheese pulling, but tasted nothing but the heat building low. Fear escalated then, the block of what if, the risk of words that could crack us open. Confession stuck, heavy as the roller in my hand earlier. What if she pulled away? What if the ease shattered like cheap glass? My body betrayed me later, pulse racing when she slung a casual arm around my shoulder at day's end, wiping sweat from her brow with the other hand. The weight settled natural, her side to mine on the couch, but the touch ignited, fingers drumming light on my arm, scent of paint and her skin close. I leaned in despite myself, head nearly to her shoulder, the rhythm of her breath sinking mine. Storms brewed outside that night, thunder rumbling distant, mirroring the one building within, dark clouds pressing, ready to break. Thunder rolled in that night, low and gathering, shaking the windows like a warning. The sky split open outside, rain lashing the glass in sheets, turning the alley below into a blur of slick pavement and pooling water. Power flickered first, a brief stutter in the lights, then plunged us into dark, the apartment swallowing its own shadows. Emily cursed off from the kitchen, the fridge humming to silence. I fumbled for the drawer, matches scratching against the striker until a flame caught. Candles lined the coffee table, their glow unsteady, casting long shapes across the walls. She emerged from the hall, 2 blankets draped over her arm, the fabric rough wool against her skin. "Couch fort," she said, voice cutting the storm's rumble, and dropped one beside me. Her face flickered in the candlelight, shadows pooling under her eyes, sharpening the line of her jaw. I nodded, pulse quickening with the wind's howl, the air already thick with ozone and the faint char of wax.
We settled on the couch, blankets pulled tight, the cushions dipping under our combined weight.
The crickets outside drowned under the downpour, rain drumming relentless on the roof, a rhythm that matched the thunder's build. Emily tucked her legs close, shoulder brushing mine as she adjusted the throw across our laps. The wool scratched my arms, but her warmth cut through, seeping from her side into the shared space. Her hand found mine under the folds, accidental at first, fingers grazing as she shifted for comfort, then curling, deliberate, palm to palm. Skin met skin, damp from the humid air, her grip firm but tentative, thumb tracing a slow line along my knuckles. I didn't pull away. The candle flames danced, throwing gold across her profile, the curve of her lip catching light. Heart thudded heavy, sinking with the storm's pulse, her breath close enough to stir the blanket's edge. You know that grip, don't you? The one that says everything without a word, holding on while the world floods outside. Stories came then, vulnerability cracking open in the dim. Thunder cracked sharp, and she squeezed my hand tighter, recounting a childhood storm that trapped her in the attic, lightning forking the sky like veins. Feared the dark more than the noise, she admitted, voice low against the rain's roar. I shared back, nights alone after my parents' fights, hiding under covers while thunder masked the shouts. Her fingers laced through mine fully now, the weave tight, pulling me closer in the narrative's pull. Eyes locked in the candle's glow, hers dark pools reflecting the flicker, holding mine steady. No rush to look away, the vulnerability raw, fears laid bare like the storm stripping the branches outside. Her chest rose and fell quicker, mirroring mine, the air between us humming with the unsaid. I saw it there, the mirror of my own want, hunger flickering like the flame, drawing me in. The fail came sudden, lean inevitable. Words trailed off, her face inches from mine, the blanket tenting over us like a secret. I shifted, drawn forward, her breath warm on my lips, the scent of rain-soaked earth mixing with her skin, clean, faintly salted from the day's end. Thunder built again, but I ignored it, eyes on the soft part of her mouth, the pull magnetic. She tilted closer, hand tightening in mine, the world narrowing to that space, hearts thudding in echo. Lightning flashed then, blinding white through the blinds, slamming us apart. The crack followed, deafening, and we jerked back, blankets tangling, her hand slipping free. "Close one," she breathed, voice ragged, rubbing her arm as if the chill hit sudden. I nodded, throat dry, the candle sputtering low, shadows leaping wild. The moment shattered, but the echo lingered, electric in my veins. Sensory peak hit after, rain scent heavy through the cracked window, mixing with her warmth still radiating from the cushion. We sat side by side, breaths sinking uneven, inhale sharp, exhale slow, the storm's fury mirroring the one inside. Her knee pressed mine under the throw, steady now, but the lean's ghost hung, breath mingling in the close air. I wanted to reach again, bridge the gap with words or touch, confess the ache that's built 7 years strong. But silence won, heavy as the downpour, words dying on my tongue. Fear clawed, ruin the ease, shatter the rhythm we've carved. So I stayed quiet, hand itching for hers, the war raging internal while thunder rolled on. A quiet day followed the storm, skies clearing to blue. But the truth edged closer to the surface, pulling us toward what couldn't stay buried. Her late night out started it, the clock ticking past 1 without her key in the lock. I'd paced the living room, the floorboards creaking under my feet, worry knotting tight in my gut like twisted rope. Emily had mentioned drinks with old college friends, casual, but the apartment felt hollow without her. her coat missing from the hook, her shoes not by the door. I checked my phone twice. No texts, just the blank screen staring back. The city noise filtered up, horns and distant shouts, but inside it pressed silent, heavy. When the door finally turned, relief flooded me sharp, washing the knot loose. She stepped in, cheeks flushed from the chill or the wine, hair tousled from the wind. "Sorry," she said, slipping off her coat, the fabric whispering to the floor. I stood there, arms crossed, the words I wanted, "Where were you? Why so late?" stuck behind my teeth. Her eyes met mine, tired but soft, and I just nodded, helped hang the coat, our fingers brushing the hanger. The touch sparked, brief, but it lingered as she headed to the kitchen for water, leaving me with the echo of absence. Morning came, the rooster crowing alone from the vendor's cart, its call slicing the quiet sharper without her rhythm to blend it. I woke to the empty side of the bed across the hall, the wall between us feeling wider than ever. Her door stayed shut longer, the creak of her frame absent, no footsteps padding to start the day. I lay there, sheets cool against my skin, the bird's cry pulling at the hollow in my chest. The apartment held her scent still, coffee grounds faint, the lavender from her soap, but it mocked the space she'd left unfilled. I rose slow, the floor cold under my bare feet, and brewed coffee for one, the pot gurgling loud in the stillness. When she emerged, rubbing sleep from her eyes, the mug waited on the counter, steam curling up. "Rough night?" I asked, voice edged, handing it over. Her fingers closed around it, warm from the ceramic, holding my gaze a beat too long. The absence echoed, pulling the routine taut, threads fraying at the edges. Confrontation brewed over breakfast, eggs sizzling forgotten as I asked about her evening. "Who were they?" I said, fork scraping the plate, voice thinning with the need I couldn't name. Emily paused, yolk dripping from her bite, eyes lifting to mine across the table. "Just friends," she replied. But her tone carried weight, the kind that hinted at more, laughter shared without me, stories I wasn't part of. The knee brush from mornings past felt distant now, the air between us sharpening. I pressed, words spilling sharper. "You were out late." Need edged my voice, raw, the worry twisting back into something possessive. She set her fork down, the clink loud, and leaned forward, elbows on the wood. "Worried?" she asked, direct, her stare unflinching. Heat rose in my face, the unspoken hanging like smoke. I shrugged, but my pulse betrayed me, thudding visible at my neck. The routine cracked there, small but insistent, pulling truths closer. That afternoon, the shared chore turned tense. Dishes from lunch clattering into the sink as we stood side by side. Water ran hot, steam rising, but the rhythm faltered. Her scrubbing a plate too hard, suds spilling over the edge. I reached for a sponge, our arms colliding, the brush sending a fork skittering to the floor. "Sorry," she muttered, bending to grab it, but I knelt too, hands meeting on the handle, knuckles grazing. We froze, faces inches apart, the metal cool between our palms. Unspoken words hung heavy, the air thick with the scent of soap and the day's unresolved pull. Her breath came quick, chest rising close, eyes locking on mine, dark, searching. I saw the mirror then, the hunger I'd buried, reflected raw in her gaze. No pulling back this time, the world narrowing to that space, the clatter fading to nothing. The near miss peaked as I stood, turning to face her fully, inches apart in the narrow kitchen. Her hand stayed on the fork, but the other rose, hovering near my arm, the heat from her skin pulling me in. The wall pressed at my back, but it was her closeness that pinned me, breath mingling, the curve of her lip parting slightly. Hunger stirred revelation, her eyes holding the same ache, mirrored clear. Years of near touches, buried wants, surfaced there, undeniable. The admission hung, ready to break free. Our lips met soft then, tentative at first, years dissolving in the hold, her hand cupping my face, pulling me closer, the world blurring to just us. If this quiet pull ever gripped you, the ache of unspoken want, share your story below. Subscribe for more truths like these, where tension breaks into something real.